The cleaning lady at the office thought her secret was safe until the CEO stumbled upon the ultrasound images she accidentally left behind. What happened next shocked everyone. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. The golden rays of an early morning sun pierced through the tall windows of the gleaming corporate tower, signaling the start of another demanding workday. Yet for Lily, the cleaning lady whose presence was as discreet as her footsteps on the polished floors, this morning brought on a special, overwhelming anxiety. As she stood alone in the break room, gripping the handle of her mop, her mind swirled with a secret she had vowed to keep locked away. Little did she know that fate was about to intervene in the most unexpected of ways. Lily had been employed at Kellington Enterprises for just a few months, working the pre-dawn shift so she could quietly slip in and out before the hustle of executive meetings and the echo of ringing phones. At 5 in the morning, she was already there, cleaning windows and wiping down desks in the near dark, guided only by the glow of security lights. The employees who showed up early rarely noticed her, and if they did, they offered a polite nod at best, nothing more. But Lily never complained. This routine gave her a kind of solitude that she found oddly comforting, despite the burden she carried in her heart. That burden was, in fact, a secret she couldn't escape. A small ultrasound image quietly tucked into her backpack, a black and white photograph that confirmed she was carrying new life inside her. No one at Kellington Enterprises knew. In truth, she had barely come to terms with the news herself. How could she admit to her co-workers, who barely acknowledged her existence, that she was pregnant? And how could she even imagine telling the CEO, Henry Kellington, an intimidating figure who walked the halls with so much self-assurance it seemed like he owned not just the building but every beating heart within it? He was a legend in the industry, feared by competitors, admired by subordinates. To Lily, he felt light years away in terms of status. Henry Kellington, all of 35 years old, had built his reputation as a fierce negotiator and relentless businessman. Having inherited the company from his late father, he doubled its size within a few short years. The staff, especially the rookies, whispered about him with awe. He never misses a deal. He can outsmart any rival. He's unstoppable. Some admired him for his philanthropic efforts, scholarships, donation drives, volunteer events under the company banner. But behind his polished grin and the corporate kindness, many believed he lived only for success. Others said he was cold inside, guided by ambition and pride rather than empathy. Lily rarely crossed paths with Henry. If ever he appeared while she was cleaning the hallway, she'd lower her gaze and step aside, allowing him and his entourage of VPs to pass with no obstruction. She was certain he didn't even know her name. Why would he? She was just the cleaning lady in the background of his empire. Nevertheless, every payday Lily was grateful. This job, humble as it was, had rescued her from mounting debts. And now that she had learned of her pregnancy, that paycheck had become a lifeline. A baby on the way meant more than just morning sickness. It meant medical expenses, diapers, rent she could no longer risk losing. Early that fateful morning, Lily was adjusting some supplies in the storage closet. Her heartbeat pounded whenever she remembered the doctor's voice confirming her pregnancy. Although she struggled to process the reality, a part of her felt a hidden spark of joy, a surge of maternal protectiveness. Still, the joy was quickly overshadowed by panic. Her savings were scarce, and the father of her child had abandoned her once things got complicated. Alone and unsure of her next step, Lily tried to push her personal concerns aside and carry on with her work. A single misstep, however, would set off a chain of events she could never have foreseen. Her phone alarm chimed, a reminder of a doctor's appointment later in the week. She sighed, slipping the phone back into her bag. That was when she realized the ultrasound picture she used as a bookmark was missing. She rummaged through her purse, mild concern turning into dread. She found candy wrappers, her bus pass, a pen, but not the ultrasound. Fear fluttered in her chest. Lily pressed her hand against her mouth, 1,000 questions colliding in her mind. How could she have lost it in this building? That single piece of paper, if found, could unravel the privacy she clung to so desperately. She had to search for it before someone else stumbled upon it, someone who might spread the news like wildfire. She retraced her steps. The break room, the reception area, even the hall near Henry's private elevator. Nothing. The offices were beginning to fill with the early risers from the finance department. She scurried past them, quietly scanning the floor, checking under desks. No luck. At one point, she overheard a conversation about the upcoming fundraising gala, something Henry Kellington took particular pride in hosting. She tried to remain calm. The last thing Lily needed was to draw attention. Meanwhile, on the top floor, where the entire corner office was dedicated to the CEO, Henry was in a strained conversation with his personal assistant, Mariah. 3 back-to-back meetings were set for the day, plus a conference call with overseas partners. Henry rubbed his temples, feeling the early signs of a headache. It was only 7 a.m., and he was already exhausted. Mariah started placing stacks of paperwork on his desk, ensuring that everything was labeled and color-coded as per his strict system. Henry scanned through the folders in front of him. Property deals, a marketing proposal, philanthropic event details. But suddenly, something was out of place. Between the pages of a standard finance report, he glimpsed a small black-and-white photograph. Confused, he pulled it free. Immediately, Henry recognized what it was, a sonogram. The unmistakable shape of a tiny human silhouette was right there, clearly measuring only a few inches. He froze, a series of questions rushing through his mind. Whose ultrasound was this? How did it end up among his files? While Henry stared at the sonogram, an unusual warmth crept over him. He had no children of his own, nor had he ever entertained the idea. Business was his life. His father's empire was all that had mattered. And yet, seeing this fragile image, a life so vulnerable, stirred something within him, a tender feeling that overshadowed even the day's stress. Then came a gentle tap on his office door. One of the junior executives poked his head in, apologizing for the interruption. A meeting was about to begin. Henry snapped the folder closed and tucked the ultrasound image into his desk drawer, mind racing. As the morning wore on, Lily continued her frantic search. She tried to be inconspicuous, but panic was building in her chest. The ultrasound was personal. More than that, it represented her child, her uncertain future. If someone found it and recognized her name on the back, gossip would spread. She didn't need the pity glances or the unwelcome attention in a place that was, at best, indifferent to her. Lily was determined to find it, praying that she hadn't accidentally thrown it away or lost it on the street. She didn't dare consider the possibility that it had already been discovered. By late morning, Henry's big meeting concluded. Instead of feeling relieved, he felt restless. Twice during the meeting, his gaze had traveled to the locked drawer in his desk. Finally, after the executives had left, Henry pulled out the ultrasound image again. That delicate shape evoked an unfamiliar ache in him, an ache that almost felt like wonder. He didn't even know whose child it was, but he felt oddly responsible, as though its well-being was in his hands. Flicking the photo over, he spotted something faint in the corner. It looked like a scribbled name, partly smudged. He narrowed his eyes, trying to make sense of it. The faint letters spelled out, Lily. The morning pressed on with an invisible weight that seemed to linger in every corridor. Lily's pulse fluttered each time her phone buzzed with an email alert, a cruel reminder that time was running out if she wanted to find that missing ultrasound. Her cleaning cart rattled as she pushed it along the 15th floor. Even the overhead fluorescents, which flickered erratically, seemed to mock her flustered state. She had to calm herself. Scanning the polished floors, Lily inhaled slowly, inhaled deeply. Focus, she reminded herself. she'd last seen the sonogram tucked in her paperback book of short stories, one she used to read during lunch breaks. Was it possible she'd left it in the executive suite while tidying up, or had she slipped it between cleaning rags without realizing? She couldn't decide which possibility was worse. Meanwhile, on the top floor, CEO Henry Kellington slowly slid the ultrasound into a protective folder he found in his desk. He glanced at the smudged name one more time. Lily, a name he had hardly noticed before. Lily, the cleaning lady? Lily from HR? Lily, a new intern? The possibilities were there, but none gave Henry any clarity. An unusual sensation gnawed at him, curiosity laced with apprehension. For a reason he couldn't fully articulate, he felt compelled to find out whose ultrasound this was and why he felt so oddly drawn to it. When Mariah, his assistant, walked in to deliver a fresh coffee, Henry nearly spoke up about the discovery. "Mariah, could you—" he began, only to lose his nerve midway. That question, "Should I ask if there's a Lily on staff?" crashed against the caution that underpinned his professional image. Henry was not known for small talk or personal detours. If he wanted answers, he'd need to find them more discreetly. "Is there something else you need, Mr. Kellington?" Mariah inquired. She noticed a peculiar look in his eyes, as though he was lost in thought. Her question hovered in the air unanswered for a moment too long. "Nothing urgent," Henry finally lied, raising his coffee cup in thanks. "I'll call you if I need anything else." Mariah left, feeling the subtle tension that Henry seemed to radiate. She had worked for him long enough to know when he was preoccupied with more than just financial reports. Far below, Lily heard the ding of her phone. She darted into a corner near the supply closet to avoid the curious gaze of a group of employees that just arrived. Her phone displayed a text from the clinic, a reminder about her appointment. Her stomach tightened. Another reminder of reality. If she didn't figure out how to navigate maternity leave, not to mention the hospital bills, she and the baby would be in serious trouble. She couldn't hold back a sigh. Her hand automatically moved to her abdomen, still flat but undeniably harboring a new life. She had planned to tell no one at the company about her pregnancy, at least not until she was sure she'd be able to keep her job. Now she could only pray that if she never found that sonogram, it might have ended up in the trash before anyone recognized it. But that hope felt fragile, dissolving under the weight of each new fear. At about 11 a.m., Lily entered the break room on the 16th floor, a location mostly used by mid-level managers. She had a small window of time before more employees showed up. In one corner was a stack of old papers waiting to be recycled. She knelt down, rifling through them with trembling hands. Coffee cups, half-torn memos, abandoned sticky notes. None of it was the precious photo she sought. She felt her eyes stinging with the onset of tears. Her chest burned with the effort of holding them back. Then, determined not to surrender to despair in a place so public, Lily collected herself, stood up, and continued her quest. She would check the higher floors next. Yes, it was daunting, but giving up wasn't an option. What Lily couldn't know was that at that same moment, Henry was pacing in his office. He had picked up the phone more than once to call security. If Lily was an employee, surely her ID card would be in the system. And if that was her name on the ultrasound, all it would take was a quick check of who worked at Kellington Enterprises with that name. But he hesitated. A part of him felt an uncharacteristic sympathy. This was a private medical detail. People had a right to keep such things to themselves. Then again, if the photograph was in his possession, shouldn't he return it as soon as possible? His internal argument was cut short by a knock on the door. The marketing director stepped in, holding a thick binder. Henry forced the ultrasound to the back of his mind and prepared to dive into a pitch about brand expansions. Still, as the director spoke, Henry found it difficult to concentrate. "We'll need your final signature on the contract with our new partners," the director said. "They're waiting on the green light from you." Henry mechanically flipped through the pages. Terms, bullet points, budgets. He scribbled a signature at the bottom, though his thoughts drifted back to that fleeting name. Lily. The marketing director's voice suddenly seemed muffled, distant. When Lily reached the 18th floor, the hallway was deserted. She stole a quick glance into the corridor leading to the CEO's domain. It felt so imposing, the thick doors, the tinted glass partitions. She'd never voluntarily stepped foot there unless she had a cleaning assignment scheduled at dawn when Henry wasn't around. She thought to herself, no way I'd lose the ultrasound up there, right? Under ordinary circumstances, Lily wouldn't dream of venturing further, but desperation emboldened her. Perhaps she had inadvertently walked near the executive offices that morning, or maybe the wind had blown a stray piece of paper out of her grasp. She sighed, noticing that the door to a small lounge area near Henry's office stood slightly ajar. She peered inside, quiet, immaculate, no signs of clutter. The faint scent of fresh flowers lingered in the air, mingling with the crisp aroma of expensive cologne. She took a few steps in, heart hammering as she scanned the plush armchairs and glass table. There, a stack of magazines fanned out, business reviews, fashion editorials, philanthropic bulletins featuring Henry Kellington's philanthropic achievements. Lily's eyes flickered to the table's surface, half expecting to see her photograph lying there. No such luck. A sudden movement in the corner startled her. She turned, feeling her stomach knot. Standing in the open doorway was Henry himself, hair perfectly in place, suit pressed to perfection, but gaze brimming with curiosity. Lily froze. This was not part of her plan. She was never supposed to meet him in such an unannounced way. For a heartbeat that felt like forever, neither spoke. She could almost hear the rush of blood in her ears. "Can I help you?" he asked softly, but there was an edge to his tone, a hint of formal distance. Her throat went dry. She was an intruder in the lion's den. I was just... Lily swallowed hard. Should she mention the lost ultrasound? Fear of revealing too much pinned her tongue. She wrestled with how to frame her presence without drawing suspicion. Henry noted the cleaning cart stationed outside in the hall. "You're part of the cleaning crew," he observed, more a statement than a question. Lily nodded, fidgeting. She took a trembling breath, deciding that truth was safer than invention. "Yes, sir. I was cleaning the lounge. The door was open." Her eyes darted nervously toward the glass table, then back at him. The words locked behind her lips were, "Did you happen to see a small photo?" But she couldn't bring herself to say them, not when her entire future felt so precarious in this building. Henry studied her for a moment. She seemed on edge, more so than employees usually were around him. Yes, they often acted stiff or overly polite, but Lily's agitation hinted at something else, something deeper. His mind flickered to the sonogram in his desk drawer. Then he realized that he had never seen this woman, at least not in a way that he'd remember. She had large, anxious eyes, and looked as though one more question might break her composure completely. "Take your time," Henry said, stepping aside to let her pass, as if to say she was free to finish her job. Lily quickly moved, her steps nearly silent on the polished floor. She was certain he could hear the pounding of her heart. "Thank you," she murmured, bowing her head ever so slightly. Before she could exit, Henry spoke again, almost an afterthought. "What's your name?" She paused, blinking. Answer or not? Fear told her to run, but courtesy and common sense made her respond, Lily, sir. Lily Hanson." There it was, confirmation. Henry felt the name settle in his mind like the click of a puzzle piece. Lily, the same name scrawled on that ultrasound. "Right. Pleasure to meet you. I'm Henry," he added, though it sounded strange to his own ears. He never introduced himself so casually. Everyone knew who he was. She offered a faint nod before making a beeline for the hallway. Only once she was well out of sight, stepping into the elevator, did she release the breath she'd been holding. Her heart still raced wildly, and the sense of dread only grew. That face-to-face meeting was the last thing she wanted, especially if Henry was about to find out more than she was ready to reveal. Back in his office, Henry quietly closed the lounge door. He walked to his desk, opened the drawer, and retrieved the ultrasound photo. The name was partially smudged, but enough letters were intact. Lily. He stared at it, a swirl of conflict in his eyes. Could it really be hers? And if so, why was she, someone presumably living paycheck to paycheck, seemingly so alone in this pregnancy that her sonogram was found by chance? Henry's conscience tugged at him. A paternal instinct he'd never known fluttered, uncoiling inside his chest in a way he couldn't easily articulate. He sensed the precariousness of her situation. Should he confront her directly about it? Or quietly slip the photo into an envelope and pass it along so she never knew he had found it? At that moment, his phone rang, an investor calling from overseas. The conversation demanded full concentration, new expansions, funding proposals, deadlines. He forced himself to focus, placing the ultrasound face down on his desk. But in the back of his mind, Lily's anxious expression remained, reminding him that not all struggles in life could be solved with money and spreadsheets. Some burdens were heartbreakingly personal. Far below, Lily rushed to the building's side exit, gulping in the fresh air of midday. She felt a wave of nausea bubble up and pressed a hand to her mouth. Everything was too much. Her condition, the looming threat of job insecurity, the searing embarrassment of that awkward exchange with the CEO. How could one piece of paper cause so much turmoil? Still, she consoled herself with one fragile thought. Maybe Henry hadn't found it. Maybe he asked her name for some other reason. But a twinge of unease told her otherwise. She needed to stay vigilant. As she leaned against the cold concrete wall, a text came in from her landlord, politely reminding her that the rent was due soon. Her breathing hitched. She thought of the unborn child who was counting on her to stay strong. A single tear escaped the corner of her eye, but she brushed it away, inhaled, and quietly prepared herself to head back inside. No meltdown, no losing composure. She would do her job, keep her head down, and pray for a miracle. After all, she had little choice. Life went on, and so must she. By early afternoon, the unspoken drama tethering Henry and Lily was intensifying, though one was entirely unaware of how tightly their fates would soon intertwine. Lily, in her modest uniform and quietly trembling resolve, found herself dreading each tick of the clock. She worried that any moment a call could come from HR informing her of company reorganization, or perhaps someone would approach her with the ultrasound in hand demanding an explanation. Both prospects made her stomach lurch. Hours slipped by as Lily busied herself with the more mundane corners of the building, dusting windowsills near the accountant's offices, polishing handrails by the stairwell, emptying trash bins on the marketing floor. She tried in vain to quell her anxious thoughts. She couldn't lose herself to panic now. She had rent to pay and a doctor's visit looming. No matter how her heart throbbed, she had to keep her job. Upstairs, Henry concluded another budget review meeting, stepping out onto the glass-walled corridor with shoulders visibly slumped. In his hand, a leather-bound planner weighed heavily, though not nearly as heavily as his guilt-laced curiosity about the woman named Lily. Twice that morning, he had stared at the swirling letters on that ultrasound image, struggling to puzzle out the dates. He noted a tiny scrawl in the margin. 9 weeks. If that detail was accurate, it pointed to a pregnancy nearing the end of its first trimester. In the hush of his private thoughts, Henry tried to recall a time he might have encountered Lily beyond a polite nod in a hallway. The more he thought about it, the more a faint memory glimmered. A casual corporate retreat about 3 months earlier, an event he had attended begrudgingly. He remembered sneaking out at one point to get fresh air in the gardens. And there, near a decorative fountain, he had bumped into someone. That quiet conversation under the moonlight. Did they talk about personal dreams, or was it a fleeting chat about the hush of the night? Had that someone been Lily? His thoughts tangled in confusion. It all felt distant and half-remembered. He certainly hadn't been himself that evening, overworked, stressed, and carrying a few glasses of wine in his system. Could he have crossed a boundary? He forced himself to remain calm. Plenty of employees had attended the retreat, from executives to interns to support staff. But something about that recollection put a knot in his chest. After a quick lunch in his office, a salad he could barely taste, Henry decided he needed clarity. If Lily's name truly matched the one on the ultrasound, he had to approach her, not to pry but to return what he believed was a prized personal possession. A wave of uncharacteristic nerves swept over him. He, Henry Kellington, the man everyone lauded as unflinchingly poised, felt his heart hammering simply considering the idea of seeking out a member of the cleaning crew. First, he called security, adopting a neutral tone. "Yes, can you tell me if an employee named Lily Hanson is on duty? Cleaning staff, if I'm not mistaken?" A polite pause, a few keyboard clicks on the other end. "Thank you," he said, after they confirmed Lily was indeed scheduled until 3 p.m. on various floors. He ended the call and stared at the ultrasound once again. His gaze flickered to the sonogram's date stamp, and a strange tightness seized his chest. 9 weeks. 3 months prior. That had been near the time of that corporate event. The mere suggestion was enough to set his thoughts spinning. "Stop it!" he silently reprimanded himself. This might be something else entirely. Before he jumped to a wild conclusion, he owed it to Lily, and to himself, to find out the truth. Unaware of Henry's internal battle, Lily was finishing up her tasks around the 10th floor lounge. Soft chatter drifted from a team meeting across the corridor. She recognized the distinctive hum of coffee machines, the shuffle of slides on a projector. Her personal chaos clashed with the everyday rhythms of corporate life, an almost surreal contrast. She pressed a cloth to the lounge's glass table, removing invisible smudges over and over until her arms felt sore. Then the lounge door opened. She turned to see Mariah, Henry's assistant, whose expression was polite but slightly apprehensive. Lily's stomach twisted into knots. Had Henry sent Mariah to find her? "Lily, right?" Mariah's voice was measured. "Mr. Kellington asked if you could drop by his office when you have a moment." Lily blinked, her cloth frozen mid-swipe. She didn't trust herself to speak immediately, for fear her voice might crack. When she did manage words, they came out too quiet. "Me? Now?" Mariah nodded, offering a thin, reassuring smile. "Yes. There's nothing to worry about. He only said he wants to speak with you briefly." So that was it. The dreaded moment had arrived. Every ounce of composure she clung to threatened to splinter. She tried to muster a casual nod as if these sorts of requests happened every day. "Oh, okay. I'll be right up." The hallway felt twice as long as usual while Lily pushed her cleaning cart away. Once safely stowed in a nearby storage closet, she took a moment to steady her breathing. "It's fine," she mumbled to herself, hand pressed to her chest. He might not even know about the ultrasound. Maybe it's about something else. Though part of her reasoned that no CEO specifically requests the presence of a cleaning lady unless it's something serious. Up on the 18th floor, Henry was seated behind his grand mahogany desk, flipping a pen between his fingers. The ultrasound image lay concealed within a folder. He hoped he might appear calm, but inside, an unfamiliar swirl of tension churned. He told himself his motive was straightforward. The right thing to do was to return the photograph. Yet a deeper, more bewildering motive nagged at him, one that made his heart thud in his ears. What if the dates matched a specific night he could barely recall? A soft knock. His pulse jolted. "Come in," Henry said, voice catching slightly before he cleared his throat. The door opened slowly to reveal Lily, her face taut with anxiety. She stepped in, clasping her hands in front of her, not sure if she should speak first or wait to be addressed. Henry stood, a gesture he almost never offered for subordinates. "Lily, thank you for coming." He motioned for her to sit in one of the leather chairs. She hesitated before lowering herself onto the edge of the seat, posture rigid. He walked around to the front of the desk, leaning against it, arms crossed, trying to find a tone that balanced his usual professionalism with gentleness. How have you been?" Henry began, immediately berating himself for such a clumsy start. Clearly, Lily wasn't in here for small talk. He tried again, cutting to the point. "I believe I might have found something that belongs to you." She swallowed, her eyes widening in dread as Henry picked up a slim folder and pulled out the ultrasound. Lily's heart lurched as though it might tear free of her chest. There it was, her precious secret, in the CEO's hand. Henry's tone softened. "I, discovered this among some documents. I wasn't sure whose it was until you mentioned your name earlier. The partial writing in the corner reads, Lily." He stepped closer, extending the sonogram gently. She couldn't speak. Her face grew pale, tears prickling behind her eyes. Instinctively she stood, shaky fingers reaching for the photo. One glance confirmed it was hers, her name scrawled along the margin, the faint date stamp at the top. The immediate relief of retrieving it was drowned out by the surge of panic. Now he knew. She pressed the ultrasound to her chest, voice trembling. I'm sorry if this caused any trouble. It wasn't my intention." Henry lifted a hand in a calm gesture. "No apology necessary. I wanted to give it back to you. It's obviously personal." Time seemed to slow as Lily's mouth quivered, mind spinning through the ramifications of this revelation. She had no illusions. He probably suspected she was pregnant. But did he suspect more? She tried to muster some explanation, but every word died in her throat. Henry pressed his lips together, appearing uncharacteristically unsure. "I realize how private this matter must be for you. I also realize I haven't exactly created an environment where personal matters can be openly discussed. But Lily, if there's anything you need..." He caught himself. In all his philanthropic endeavors, he had rarely been face-to-face with an employee's personal struggle like this. "I just mean, are you okay? Do you need help?" The question sounded clumsy, but it was the only way he knew to express concern. Her eyes glistened, and she inhaled shakily. She wanted to say, "I'm fine," to maintain her pride, but the exhaustion and fear in her heart made that simple lie impossible. Still, she couldn't exactly break down in front of the CEO, so Lily chose a careful half-truth. "I appreciate your concern, sir, truly, but I'm managing." Henry nodded, though his gaze lingered on her with an odd intensity. "If that changes, or if there's anything at all this company can do, let me know. I know that might sound formal, but I mean it." His posture, the slight slope of his shoulders, the softened angle of his jaw, was unlike anything Lily had seen. A faint tension buzzed in the space between them. Words hovered unspoken. Lily's precarious finances, Henry's sense of confusion, the mild suspicion that maybe there was more to the story than an incidental pregnancy. But neither dared voice it. "Thank you, sir," Lily whispered. She clutched the ultrasound, wanting desperately to retreat to the safety of anonymity. At the same time, part of her felt that Henry's concern, awkward as it was, came from a genuine place. An awkward beat of silence passed. Henry exhaled, pivoting back toward his desk. "I won't keep you. I just wanted to be sure this found its way back to you. It seemed important." "Thank you," she repeated, almost breathless. Her entire body trembled as she stepped toward the door. Right before exiting, she paused, eyes lowered. "I'm sorry if this complicates anything." Henry frowned. "Complicates? No. You have nothing to apologize for, Lily." The way he said her name felt weighted with a compassion she hadn't expected. She nodded once and slipped out. The moment the door clicked shut, Henry sank into his chair, letting out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He stared at the closed door, weighed down by a restlessness he couldn't shake. An unsettling thought took hold. If Lily was indeed around 9 or 10 weeks pregnant, and if something had happened between them at that corporate retreat. But it was easier, for the moment, to keep that possibility locked in a corner of his mind. He couldn't reconcile the strict lines of his professional world with the chaos of such an intimate discovery. Instead, he opened his laptop, forcing himself to review the next wave of emails. Yet nothing on the screen held his focus. All his senses remained in that brief conversation, replaying Lily's look of vulnerability and the gentle quiver in her voice. Down the hallway, Lily clutched the ultrasound to her heart as she pressed the elevator button. She felt simultaneously relieved and undone. He hadn't fired her. He hadn't asked intrusive questions. But that polite concern coming from the office's most powerful man? It shook her more than any confrontation could. She felt exposed in ways she never had before. Questions tumbled in her head. Would he tell HR? Would rumors spread? Would she be quietly replaced? As the elevator door slid shut, Lily glanced once more at the cherished photo, her baby's first image. She closed her eyes and allowed herself one fleeting wish, that maybe, just maybe, all was not lost. For now, she had her job. She had the ultrasound back, and she had a small measure of kindness from an unexpected source. It was enough to face another day. The rest of the day felt like an out-of-body experience for Lily. After leaving Henry's office, her legs wobbled with every step as she guided her cart toward the lower floors. The routine hum of the vacuum, the faint smell of cleaning solution, even the distant murmur of co-workers in midday meetings, everything blurred into white noise. Her mind replayed the exchange in Henry's office in disjointed snippets, his concerned expression, the gentle but firm way he had offered to help, and the genuine sincerity in his voice when he said it was important. Yet beneath Lily's relief at retrieving the ultrasound, a deeper swirl of questions stirred. Did Henry suspect that her pregnancy might somehow involve him? Was he simply being kind out of a sense of corporate responsibility? Or was it genuine empathy? She let out a shaky breath, leaning briefly against the wall outside the finance department. If she obsessed over every possibility, she might lose her composure entirely. She needed to focus on immediate, tangible concerns, like finishing her shift without raising further eyebrows. Meanwhile, Henry found himself unable to concentrate on the stack of emails and reports on his desk. For the first time in years, he was missing calls, forgetting to respond to messages, losing track of time in a swirl of half-formed thoughts. Not even the ringing phone could fully break the spell of reflection. One of the managers had to knock twice to get his attention, and each time Henry tried to force his focus back to business, his gaze drifted to the memory of Lily's frightened but resolute eyes. By late afternoon, he yielded to his restless curiosity and decided to search his own recollections. He opened his personal calendar, scrolling back 3 months, scanning for the date of that corporate retreat. Though he kept an immaculate digital schedule, details of after-work gatherings or impromptu late-night chats wouldn't be there. The event had been a weekend leadership seminar. He recalled it ended with an optional social hour. He tried to piece together an image of that night: the catered buffet, the bar, the small talk. At some point he had grown bored, wandering outside to the garden path lit by decorative lanterns. Yes, there, under a willow tree near the fountain. The memory sharpened. He remembered seeing a woman sitting on a bench looking out at the water. She seemed upset, or maybe just lost in thought. Henry had approached, perhaps in a moment of uncharacteristic spontaneity, asking if she was okay. She had looked up with mild surprise. His memory of her face was fuzzy, but the softness in her voice lingered. They'd exchanged some words, maybe more. A breeze carried the scent of gardenias. Then, Henry rubbed his temples. Beyond that point, everything fractured. He recalled having a glass of wine in hand, maybe 2. At some point, they'd ended up talking by the fountain for longer than he'd planned. And if he was being honest, He had been charmed by the warmth and sincerity of her conversation. She wasn't starstruck by his title. In fact, she'd offered a few gentle jests about corporate life and the stress of living up to a big family name. He remembered laughing, genuinely laughing, which he rarely did outside of professional courtesy, but the rest was a swirl of half-remembered impressions. Returning abruptly to the present, Henry found that his heart was racing. Had that woman been Lily, or was he conflating separate events? Even if it was her, it didn't necessarily mean... He swallowed. The notion both intrigued and terrified him. Henry's entire adult life had been dominated by discipline and control, over finances, over business strategies, over every personal detail he displayed in public. The possibility that he'd let something slip undone or unplanned in a single evening was deeply unsettling. But he couldn't deny that the timeline matched suspiciously well. Down in the custodial supply room, Lily was finishing her shift. She closed the door behind her, setting aside her cleaning cart before changing out of her uniform. Sliding into her worn jeans and sweater, she felt an ache in her lower back, a new twinge that had cropped up since the pregnancy. Exhaustion pressed in on her. She needed to eat. She needed a second to breathe. But the memory of Henry's unexpected kindness and the swirling tension of what he might suspect kept pricking at her thoughts. As she shouldered her purse, she felt an incoming call buzz on her phone. The screen displayed a familiar name, Myra. An old friend from her hometown, Myra had been Lily's confidant since high school. Lily hesitated but then answered. "Hey," Lily greeted softly. "It's been a day." Myra's concerned voice responded, "You sound wiped, girl. Are you okay?" Lily pressed her lips together. She wanted to spill everything, about losing the ultrasound, about Henry, about the swirl of uncertainty. But she resisted. "Just tired," she said. "Still at work. How about you?" They exchanged small talk. Myra, sensing Lily's reticence, offered encouraging words, reminding her that she didn't have to go through pregnancy alone. "You know I'm here," Myra said. "Just say the word and I'll come visit on the weekend. We'll figure things out. Money, baby stuff, all of it." Warmth filled Lily's chest at the offer. She realized just how desperately she craved a supportive friend's presence. "Thanks," she whispered. "I might take you up on that soon." They hung up, and for a moment, Lily allowed herself to imagine a life beyond the walls of Kellington Enterprises, a small apartment with a proper crib, her best friend by her side, healthy finances. She sighed, tucking away the phone. It felt like a distant fantasy. The next morning, Lily arrived early again, determined to slip into her routine without incident. The bus ride had jostled her barely awake self, and she clutched a thermos of herbal tea to soothe her queasy stomach. She was 9 weeks along, according to the scan, and the morning sickness was only growing more potent each day. She made her way through the lobby, greeted only by the security guard's nod. Then, quietly, she began her rounds, disinfecting doorknobs and wiping windows in the vacant corridors. It felt almost calming, like the building itself was asleep, allowing her a moment's peace. But peace wouldn't last. Around 7 a.m., she noticed Mariah, Henry's assistant, briskly moving through the hallway as if looking for someone. Lily froze, hoping to avoid another summons. But Mariah caught sight of her. "Lily," she called gently. "Morning. Mr. Kellington is asking if you could come by his office sometime after 8. He's got a bit of free time today, and I think he wants to chat." The knot in Lily's stomach twisted tighter. "He wants to chat again?" She tried to keep her tone neutral, though her heartbeat was already accelerating. Mariah offered a thin smile. "Yes, but don't worry. It sounded, I don't know, personal rather than disciplinary. He's not in a bad mood, if that's your concern." Lily managed a polite nod, though fear prickled under her skin. Why another meeting? Didn't they say all that needed saying yesterday? She recalled the moment Henry handed her the ultrasound photo, how it felt like her entire world was laid bare. Could he have more questions? Or did he simply feel obligated to follow up? Lily wasn't sure which possibility was more daunting. Upstairs, Henry sat behind his desk, sipping coffee that tasted flat. He was determined to approach Lily again, but this time more thoroughly. He needed answers, even if the conversation felt like stepping onto thin ice. Part of him struggled with guilt. It's her private life, he reminded himself. Why pry? But an even bigger part of him couldn't silence the possibility that the child might be his. If so, how could he turn a blind eye? The clock neared 8. Lily entered his office tentatively, eyes flicking to the large windows that framed the city skyline. For a surreal instant, she noticed Henry in a state that could almost be described as tense. He stood, motioning her toward a seat, his posture stiffer than before. She hadn't thought it possible for this man to feel self-conscious, yet she sensed it in the air. "Thank you for coming," Henry began, clearing his throat. "I'm sorry to keep calling you up here." Lily folded her hands, searching his face. "It's okay." He paused, glancing at the paperwork on his desk before meeting her gaze. "I realize that what I'm about to ask might be personal. Too personal. But I'm struggling with a question I can't ignore." The gravity in his voice made Lily's pulse pound. Henry inhaled slowly. "I need to know if we've met before. Outside of typical work hours, specifically that corporate retreat 3 months ago." Her face went white, and Henry saw the confirmation flash in her eyes before she uttered a word. "I realize this might sound strange, but I do recall meeting someone then, someone who reminded me that, well, I wasn't all business all the time." His voice grew soft. "Was that you?" Lily's throat constricted. She had no illusions now about Henry's line of thinking. The timeline, the unexpected sense of recognition. Yes, it was all converging, and she no longer had the will or reason to lie. She swallowed. "Yes," she whispered, voice barely audible. "We spoke by the fountain." Henry's features flickered through surprise, relief, and a tinge of anxiety. "That's what I remembered," he murmured. Silence settled between them, weighted with possibility. Lily could hear her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Finally, Henry gently pressed forward. "Lily, I'm not asking to intrude, but could what happened that night have led to—" He trailed off, looking briefly at her abdomen before returning to her eyes. Tears threatened to rise in Lily's gaze. She recalled the night with painful clarity. She'd felt lonely, overshadowed by the glitz and hierarchy of the retreat. After stepping away to the garden for air, she'd been surprised when Henry strolled up, curiosity in his eyes. They'd talked, longer than expected, about life, about the pressures of upholding a family legacy. He'd confessed a rare sense of burnout. She'd admitted her own insecurities about being just a cleaning lady. Then the conversation had drifted into unexpected warmth, a comfort she hadn't anticipated. One thing led to another, leaving them entangled in an impulsive moment of closeness she'd never before experienced. The next morning, Henry was gone. Everything felt like a dream. She could have told him then, but shame, confusion, and panic had silenced her. Plus, she never guessed he would remember her at all. She blinked back tears, struggling to steady her voice. "Henry, I didn't plan any of it. I was going through a tough time, and you seemed, I don't know, kind, different than the day-to-day corporate boss. She hesitated, forcing a breath. "Yes, it happened. Once. And then. We never spoke again." Henry's reaction came in a slow exhale. She saw the swirl of emotions flit across his face. Shock, guilt, apprehension, possibly even a flicker of guarded relief. "So the baby is—" He couldn't finish the sentence. A tear escaped Lily's eye as she nodded. "I found out weeks later. I didn't know how to tell you, or if I even should." Her words fell fragile in the hush of the executive office. Henry felt an odd mixture of panic and protectiveness flooding him. Everything he thought about himself, rigid control, careful planning, crumbled under the weight of a single, undeniable truth. He might soon be a father. And the woman carrying his child was a cleaning lady on his payroll, overwhelmed and scared. She braced herself for anger, for accusations that she had tricked him. Instead, Henry's voice quivered with unexpected earnestness. "Why didn't you come to me?" he asked. "I would have helped. I can still help." "I was scared," Lily answered, tears still glistening. "We barely spoke after that night, and I didn't know if you'd believe me, or if you'd fire me just to keep it quiet, or if you'd look down on me for even suggesting it could be your responsibility." The last confession came out in a halting rush, and Henry winced at the harsh truth. He certainly had a reputation as a man with little time or empathy for personal drama. A long silence weighed upon them, and Lily felt hollowed out by vulnerability. No turning back now, her secret was laid bare. Henry swallowed hard, stepping around his desk so he could stand beside her. They were close enough that Lily could sense the subdued tremble in his stance. "We have so much to figure out," he said at last, voice shaking slightly. "But I promise you this, Lily, you won't face any of it alone." For a moment, Lily couldn't respond. Her throat was constricted with emotion. She stared at him, uncertain whether to trust the sincerity that glistened in his eyes. Could he really mean it? Finally, she allowed a small, watery nod, relief mixed with the terror of this new chapter. In that quiet exchange, the building's usual bustle receded, leaving only two people standing on the precipice of a life-altering revelation. The unstoppable CEO and the quiet cleaning lady, bound now by a fragile heartbeat that pulsed in Lily's womb. The gravity of it all was staggering. Though neither knew precisely what steps would come next, one reality was inescapable. There was no going back to business as usual. Not when a new, delicate future had begun to form, drawing them out of their separate worlds and into a singular, fragile hope. Even as the reality of their situation settled between them like a fragile truce, Lily and Henry remained standing in the hushed office, seemingly caught in a moment that refused to let go. At last, Henry gestured to the leather chair by his desk, and Lily lowered herself carefully, trying to steady the quiver in her limbs. She could feel her heart pounding in her ears, an impossible tempo of fear and hope intertwined. Henry sank onto the edge of his desk, as if he couldn't quite bring himself to retreat behind it. Neither of them spoke right away. Outside, the bustle of Kellington Enterprises carried on, the ding of elevator doors, the chatter of assistants, the tapping of keyboards. But in this space, it felt as though the world had paused in stunned silence, waiting to see how they would move forward. Finally, Henry drew in a breath, his voice more subdued than Lily had ever heard it. "We both know this is a lot." His gaze dipped to the floor, then came back to hers with careful resolve. "I hardly know where to start, but I do know I want to be there, however I can, if you'll let me." Lily pressed her hands together in her lap. Part of her wanted to jump at the offer. Another part, still wounded by months of carrying the secret alone, hesitated. She had told herself so many times that she would have to shoulder everything, bills, doctor visits, emotional upheaval, without any help. Opening the door to Henry's involvement felt like unveiling a door she'd nailed shut. Still, deep down, she sensed that shutting him out now would be unfair to both him and the child. "I'm not used to depending on anyone," she admitted, eyes locked on her clasped hands. "I'm barely keeping up with rent and groceries. I've been so terrified to tell the truth, but if you want to help," her voice trembled, "then maybe we can figure out the details together." Henry nodded slowly. "Yes, of course." He cleared his throat, trying to mask his own nerves. "We'll work out the financial side, medical expenses, whatever you need. I just want you to feel safe." A flood of relief washed over Lily, tempered by caution. She wanted to believe Henry's sincerity, but questions still loomed. "I appreciate that," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I also have to ask, how are we going to handle this here at work? I'm just the cleaning lady. You're the CEO. People are bound to notice eventually." Her eyes flickered with worry. For a moment, Henry's jaw tightened. He'd built an empire on controlling every angle and nuance of public perception. The notion that his personal life, especially a situation as unconventional as this, might become gossip fodder rattled him. Yet, a calmer sense of responsibility nudged him. "We'll handle it privately for now," he assured her, though even he wasn't entirely certain how. "And if it becomes public, we'll handle that too. But first, your health and the baby come before any corporate ramifications." She nodded, letting out a shuddering breath. "Thank you," she whispered. She was still processing the surreal shift. Yesterday, she was sure her job hung by a thread. Today, the most powerful man in the building was vowing support. The whiplash made her dizzy. Their conversation shifted to more practical matters, albeit awkwardly. Lily mentioned her upcoming prenatal appointments, and Henry insisted she shouldn't worry about the days she might need off work. He even offered to have his assistant, Mariah, help with scheduling if Lily felt comfortable with that. Lily hesitated. She wasn't ready to share personal details with anyone else just yet. Henry seemed to understand and didn't press. When the conversation hit a lull, Lily swallowed hard. "Henry, about that night..." Her cheeks warmed with embarrassment. "We barely knew each other and things just happened so fast. I don't want you to think I..." Henry stopped her with a raised hand, his eyes earnest. "It's on me as much as you. Let's not blame ourselves or each other. It happened. Now we focus on doing right by the baby." Though the words steadied Lily, Henry inwardly fought his own guilt. He'd prided himself on being measured, controlled. Yet one unguarded night had changed both of their lives forever. Sensing her growing fatigue, he concluded softly, "I won't keep you any longer. I know you have work." He paused, a slight wince crossing his face. "Though, I hope we can find you a less physically demanding role if you want that. I'm not sure how comfortable you are with cleaning floors while pregnant." Lily blinked. Her immediate instinct was to rebuff the suggestion. She didn't want charity or special favors. But the weariness in her bones and the quiet protest in her lower back reminded her that pushing carts and heavy vacuum cleaners would only grow harder. Carefully, she managed a small nod. "Maybe soon I could switch to something that's easier physically," she admitted, voice tentative, "if there's an opening somewhere else in the company." Henry released the breath he'd been holding. "Yes, of course," he said. "We can talk about that. I'll see what we can do." A ring of relief colored his tone. For once he felt like he was taking a tangible step to help, rather than simply offering vague words. With that, Lily rose, biting her lip to contain a host of conflicting emotions. Henry stood too, and a flicker of awkwardness flitted in the air, like two people who once shared a secret closeness but now hardly knew how to part ways. At the door, Lily paused, feeling compelled to speak. "I'm glad we talked," she murmured. "I was so afraid of what you'd think or do if you found out." Henry's mouth curved in something approximating a warm smile. "I'm just sorry you carried it alone for so long." Then, quietly, he added, "Take care of yourself, Lily. And let's keep each other updated, all right?" She nodded, stepping out into the corridor. Even as she walked away, her nerves alight and heart in turmoil, there was a tiny seed of hope blooming inside her, fragile, yet real. Maybe this was the beginning of a new kind of understanding, one in which she didn't have to face every storm on her own. In the days that followed, their lives fell into a tentative rhythm. Lily continued working her shifts, though Henry encouraged Mariah to check in discreetly, offering small breaks or help if Lily seemed overworked. Mariah, sensitive and professional, did so without making a spectacle. Occasionally, Lily and Henry would meet in his office or speak briefly in a quiet hallway, exchanging updates with a hushed urgency. Each conversation was tinged with the weight of their private world. And yet not everyone was oblivious. In the Human Resources Department, a woman named Celia frowned each time an odd request came through about Lily's schedule. Why was the CEO himself taking interest in a cleaning lady's hours? Celia, known for her meticulous record-keeping and her knack for office gossip, started to wonder if there was more to the story. "We don't typically rearrange the entire shift roster for one staff member," she grumbled to a colleague, scanning a recently approved schedule change. "But apparently direct orders from Mr. Kellington override standard procedure." Her colleague shrugged, uninterested, but Celia kept it in the back of her mind. Meanwhile, Lily confided in exactly one person, Myra, her friend from back home, who decided to visit on a Saturday morning. They met in Lily's modest studio apartment, a cramped space with peeling wallpaper and a sink that never stopped dripping. As soon as Myra saw Lily's anxious expression, she pulled her into a fierce hug. "Tell me everything," Myra urged, pulling off her jacket. "Start to finish." Lily spilled the entire saga, her job at Kellington, the corporate retreat, the unexpected closeness with Henry, the months of secret pregnancy, and Henry's recent reaction. Myra's eyes went wide, and she alternated between shock, excitement, and protective concern. "That's a lot," Myra breathed, "but it sounds like he's actually stepping up. That's good, right?" "Better than I expected," Lily admitted. "He's kind, in his own serious way, but I can't help wondering if this is all temporary. What if, once the baby's here, he decides it's too complicated or it damages his reputation? He could walk away, Myra. He has the power to do whatever he wants." Myra took Lily's hands, her voice gentle. "You can't let fear paralyze you. Focus on the fact that you have an ally now, maybe not the one you dreamed of, but an ally. And for your baby's sake, keep that door open." Lily nodded, tears pricking at her eyes. She wanted to trust. She really did. But the ghosts of abandonment, from her own father who left when she was small, gnawed at her heart. Later that weekend, Henry wrestled with questions of his own. He sat in his opulent penthouse, perched on a sleek leather couch overlooking the city's skyline. Ordinarily, he found the view soothing, but tonight it only served as a backdrop to his restless thoughts. His phone vibrated, a message from Mariah about an upcoming video conference. He barely glanced at it. His mind was elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about Lily, her vulnerability, her courage, and the protective impulse he felt whenever he pictured her. Henry was accustomed to controlling outcomes, but this was a domain where a spreadsheet couldn't tell him the right move. A child. It was bigger than any merger, more monumental than any deal he'd ever brokered. It signaled a permanent shift in his life. The question was, how far was he truly willing to go? At length he opened a search on his laptop, typing prenatal care guidelines, as if reading about vitamins and doctor visits could quell the uneasy thrumming in his chest. The more he read, the more he realized what Lily had likely endured alone. Doctor appointments, morning sickness, the swirl of hormonal changes, all while worrying about job security. Guilt prickled his conscience. He whispered to the empty room, "She must have been so frightened." And yet she had carried on. Before he could spiral further, a memory from the retreat flickered through his mind. Lily's soft laughter echoing near the fountain, her eyes lighting up when he shared a silly childhood story about sneaking out of boarding school. She'd teased him that night. "You do realize you're allowed to be human, right?" He'd liked how she said that, like she was giving him permission no one else dared. Henry closed the laptop, determination sparking. He didn't want to be merely an occasional check-in or a silent financial backer. This was his child, too. His responsibility, yes, but also something more. If Lily would let him, he wanted to share the weight in a genuine way, not out of obligation or guilt, but something deeper. Maybe he couldn't put a name to it yet, but he knew he couldn't stand idly by. Monday morning arrived, bringing the usual chaos at Kellington Enterprises. Phone lines lit up, coffee machines hissed, executives dashed to early meetings. Lily, wearing a slightly looser uniform to accommodate her sensitive stomach, tiptoed through the corridors, hoping to avoid any prying eyes. However, Henry was already in his office, waiting to talk. As soon as he heard from Mariah that Lily was on the premises, he sent a calm request for her to visit. Walking in, Lily braced herself, noticing an unusual tension in Henry's posture. He offered her a seat and hesitated before speaking. "I've been thinking—" He laced his fingers, letting out a breath. "I want you to consider seeing an obstetrician that I trust. She's top-notch, and I'll cover all expenses. No one else has to know if that worries you." The sincerity in his gaze touched her, but fear flared up. "Henry, that's generous," she replied slowly. "But are you sure? I mean, I'm aware how this might look." He gently waved away her concern. "I'm not interested in how it might look. I only care that you and the baby get the best care possible." A beat passed. "And beyond that, if you're comfortable, I'd like to be involved. Come to appointments, help you handle whatever you need. Is that all right?" Overwhelmed by his offer, Lily's throat tightened. Part of her longed for such help. Another part worried about trusting too easily. But her bank account was meager, and each day the pregnancy advanced with no margin for error. She exhaled softly, feeling the sting of tears behind her eyes. "All right," she whispered. "That would mean a lot, thank you." Henry nodded, relieved. For a moment, a flicker of hope passed between them. Two people tentatively weaving an alliance for the sake of a child who could change everything. Neither denied the complexity or the challenges ahead. But at least they were standing on the same side now, peering into an uncertain future together. The week that followed was a whirlwind of quiet adjustments and secret plans as Lily and Henry began to tiptoe into their new reality. They agreed to keep things as discreet as possible, for her comfort and for the company's sake, while starting the first steps toward co-parenting. Yet beneath that calm veneer, 1,000 emotions churned in both of them. Lily noticed the impact almost immediately. Mariah, acting on Henry's instructions, revised her schedule so she wouldn't have to carry heavy cleaning equipment for extended periods. While Lily appreciated the reprieve, she could also sense the puzzled stares from her co-workers. At least one fellow cleaner commented, "Wise management rearranging your shift. Something special about you?" Lily managed a tight-lipped smile and shrugged, pretending not to know the answer herself. Meanwhile, Celia in HR continued to poke around, noticing unusual exceptions in Lily's file. Twice that week, she emailed Mariah with innocuous-sounding requests like, "Please confirm whether Lily Hansen's hours are following standard corporate guidelines," or "Who approved her schedule modifications?" Each time, Mariah responded with a polite but firm, "Per Mr. Kellington's directive." Celia's suspicions deepened. She wasn't malicious by nature, but she prided herself on maintaining order, and something about this arrangement felt out of order indeed. One afternoon, Lily and Henry managed a short conversation behind closed doors. He had set aside a sliver of time between meetings, insisting that she stop by so they could finalize plans for her upcoming doctor's appointment. Lily slipped in quietly, her nerves on edge, half convinced someone would spot her entering the executive suite. But Henry greeted her with a calm smile, gesturing for her to sit in a chair opposite his own. "I got in touch with Dr. Patel," he said, handing Lily a small folder of information. "She's excellent, based on the west side of town. I let her know you'd be calling, and I'll cover all the costs. Her office is expecting you next Tuesday, if that's all right." Lily skimmed the details, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and trepidation. "That's more than all right," she breathed. I can't thank you enough. If it weren't for your help, I'd still be struggling to save for a proper appointment." Henry shifted in his seat, looking faintly uncomfortable with the praise. "It's the least I can do," he said quietly. Then his gaze flickered to her abdomen. "How are you feeling? Really?" She swallowed. On the surface, she was holding herself together. Yet she couldn't forget the bouts of morning sickness or the restless nights worrying about whether Henry's support might disappear as quickly as it arrived. "Tired," she admitted honestly. "I still get sick in the mornings, but I'm managing. My friend, Myra, she's been checking on me too. It helps to have people." Henry nodded in understanding. He wanted to do more, to assure her that he wasn't going anywhere, but as soon as the conversation nudged toward deeper emotional ground, he found the right words hard to come by. "If there's anything else you need," he repeated, "just tell me." Then, adding carefully, "I'd like to be there next Tuesday if you'll let me, for the appointment." At that, Lily blinked. She hadn't expected Henry to want to personally attend a prenatal checkup. The mental image of him in a cramped exam room, listening to a heartbeat through a sonogram, felt almost surreal. Yet something in her chest fluttered at the idea of not being alone this time. "Okay," she agreed softly. "Yes, that would mean a lot." Their brief moment of shared warmth was interrupted by a rap on the door. Mariah's voice followed, announcing an urgent call from overseas. Henry grimaced apologetically, and Lily took her cue to slip out, pressing the folder to her chest like a lifeline. The next few days passed in a blur, and Lily's tension swelled as Tuesday approached. On the morning of her appointment, she tried her best to appear calm, but Myra, who'd stayed over the night before, saw right through her. "It's normal to be anxious," Myra said, squeezing Lily's hand before she left for work. "But you'll feel better once you have some medical reassurance." That reassurance had better come quickly, Lily thought as she walked into the office that day. She'd lost her breakfast again due to nausea, and her uniform felt just snug enough to remind her that soon she might not be able to hide this pregnancy from the entire building. By noon, Henry was waiting by one of the staff elevators, wearing a casual blazer in place of his usual suit jacket. It was rare to see him away from the upper floors, but he seemed determined. Lily approached shyly, conscious that a few staffers who passed by looked curious. She nodded to him, and without much ado they slipped out a side entrance where a sleek company car stood waiting. The ride to Dr. Patel's clinic was quieter than Lily had expected. She stared out the window, chewing on her lip. Henry, seated beside her, fiddled with the edge of his phone, casting the occasional glance her way as if to see if she was okay. At one point he ventured a soft remark about the weather. It's supposed to rain later. But neither had the energy for small talk. The gravity of what they were about to do hung in the air. Once inside the clinic, Lily's nerves soared. The smell of antiseptic, the low hum of air conditioning, the humdrum pastel walls. It all reminded her of the lonely visits she'd made weeks ago to confirm she was pregnant. That day, she'd felt so alone, imagining that no one would stand by her. Today, Henry quietly paid the receptionist and sat down in the waiting area with her, shoulders tense but face composed. Other expectant mothers lounged in chairs, some accompanied by partners or family, flipping through parenting magazines. Lily tried to keep her gaze down, feeling self-conscious. Henry, however, cast discreet glances around, as though absorbing an entirely new world. He'd never set foot in a prenatal clinic, never needed to. But now, listening to the occasional laughter or hushed conversation from the other couples, he realized how isolated Lily must have felt coming here alone before. Eventually, a nurse called Lily's name. She stood, exhaling sharply, and Henry followed. The nurse guided them into a small exam room where Dr. Patel, a composed woman in her 50s, greeted Lily with warmth. "You must be Lily," she said, shaking hands. Then she turned to Henry with professional politeness. "And you're..." Henry cleared his throat, glancing at Lily. She gave him a slight nod, so he mustered a cordial, "I'm Henry. The father, I suppose." The words sounded both surreal and strangely natural, spilling from his lips. Dr. Patel smiled, looking between them. "Nice to meet you both." She directed Lily to the scale first, then took her vitals. After some friendly small talk about Lily's symptoms, Dr. Patel motioned for her to lie back on the exam table for an ultrasound. Henry stood by Lily's side, feeling his heart hammer like he was the one under examination. The machine whirred to life, and Dr. Patel applied a cool gel to Lily's abdomen. Lily reached for Henry's hand without thinking. Her fingers found his, and he squeezed gently, a wordless promise not to let her go. She was trembling, half from nerves, half from wonder. Then a grainy image appeared on the monitor. Dr. Patel moved the wand slightly, and they heard a fluttering rhythm fill the small room. Henry inhaled sharply, free hand flying to his mouth. Lily's eyes welled with tears, the baby's heartbeat, faster and stronger than Henry had imagined possible. He glanced down at Lily, seeing her expression mirrored in his own astonishment. Dr. Patel pointed out the little form on the screen, the faint shapes of arms and legs, the curve that would eventually become a spine. "That's your baby," Dr. Patel announced with gentle satisfaction, "measuring right on schedule for your estimated gestational age." A tear slipped from Lily's eye, and her chest heaved with silent relief. She'd known she was pregnant, but hearing the heartbeat in front of Henry made it feel more real, more shared. He squeezed her hand again, but his gaze never left the monitor. If he had any doubts before, they vanished in the waves of that whooshing sound, a testament to new life. Dr. Patel took measurements, printed out a few ultrasound images, then discussed prenatal vitamins and scheduling the next appointment. She mentioned how important rest and moderate exercise were, reminding Lily to avoid heavy lifting. Henry nodded intently, as though memorizing each instruction to enforce it himself. When the exam ended, Lily cleaned off the gel and slid off the table, legs a bit shaky. Henry hovered, a cautious presence. "Thank you," he told the doctor, his tone reflecting genuine awe. They settled the paperwork, arranged a follow-up visit, and returned to the waiting room with a noticeable shift in their demeanor. Lily held the new ultrasound pictures pressed to her chest, heart buoyed by relief and no small amount of joy. Henry walked a fraction of an inch closer to her than before, unconsciously protective. Outside, the sky had grown overcast, matching the earlier forecast. Rain threatened, the first fat droplets darkening the sidewalk as they made their way to the car. Lily paused for a moment under the clinic's awning, glancing at Henry. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I don't know what I would have done on my own." Henry slipped an arm around her shoulders, briefly, tentatively, before letting it fall. "You won't have to do it alone," he answered, voice thick with emotion. "I promise." She blinked away tears, nodding. In that moment, the hush of the world seemed to cradle them, two people standing on a threshold where neither wealth nor position mattered as much as the fragile heartbeat they'd just heard. Their unspoken vulnerabilities twined together, forging the first real sense of unity in an improbable bond. They climbed into the waiting car just as the rain began in earnest. Through the windshield wipers, Lily caught sight of Henry's reflection in the glass. He looked different, softer, more open, like a man quietly deciding that fatherhood might define him in ways his empire never could. And for the first time in months, Lily felt her anxiety ease, replaced by a tentative belief that, yes, maybe they really could do this. In the hush of that drive back, no elaborate conversation was needed. They simply shared the same car, the same realization. Life was no longer the same as it had been yesterday. It was messier, scarier, and unexpectedly more profound. And that would have to be enough for now. Days after the clinic visit, the rain continued in intermittent spells, giving the city a glossy sheen. Within Kellington Enterprises, life rolled on in its usual current of emails, board meetings, and hurried footsteps in polished corridors. Yet for Lily and Henry, that ordinary rhythm felt irrevocably altered. Both carried the memory of the baby's heartbeat like a quiet, persistent pulse in their own chests. For Lily, hope and worry coexisted in every moment. She found herself pausing more often in the middle of her tasks, like polishing the brass banister or wiping a smudge from the 15th floor window, to lay a hand on her still small bump, recalling the swift whoosh of that ultrasound. She would think, "There's a life in me, one that Henry wants to protect, one I'm finally not alone in caring for." Her friend Myra noticed the shift immediately. One Saturday morning, they met for breakfast at a small diner near Lily's apartment. Amid the scent of frying bacon and the low hum of conversation, Myra marveled at how Lily's eyes lit up when she mentioned Henry. "You sound calmer," Myra said, sipping orange juice. "I remember you being so panicked about him a few weeks ago. Now you talk like you trust him." Lily fiddled with her coffee mug, nodding slowly. "I'm trying to trust. It feels strange and sometimes scary, but he's been so genuine." She paused, remembering Henry's odd expression at the doctor's office. "He's making an effort, paying for the medical visits, checking in on me discreetly. I still can't picture him pushing a stroller or anything," she added with a faint laugh, "but I'm seeing a different side of him." "Sounds like it," Myra teased, leaning forward. "But watch your heart, Lily. Maybe he's a decent guy, but he's also your boss, and a CEO with a lot on his plate. Just be careful, okay?" "I will," Lily promised, though a little flicker of longing pricked her heart. There was a part of her that dared to imagine more, a genuine, lasting partnership, but she quickly reined in those thoughts. She had learned, over years of fending for herself, that fantasies could lead to heartbreak if taken too far. Meanwhile, in the sleek executive suite of Kellington Enterprises, Henry navigated the dual demands of high-stakes business and the quiet hush of impending fatherhood. He hadn't formally told anyone about Lily or the pregnancy, beyond Mariah, who only knew enough to keep Lily's schedule flexible. Yet Henry's internal circle began noticing changes. He was more pensive in meetings, sometimes distracted. He started turning down late-night client dinners, which was unusual for him. And on a few occasions he left earlier than normal, no longer clinging to his desk past dark. The philanthropic committee especially felt his partial detachment. They'd been planning a major charity gala, something Henry once championed with gusto, but now his focus drifted. "He seems preoccupied," one board member murmured after an unproductive conference call. "I'm sure he's got big deals going on," offered another, but the seeds of curiosity took root. One afternoon, Henry took a rare break to step outside. The building's rooftop garden, a small but meticulously maintained area, provided a moment of fresh air. He gazed over the city skyline, remembering the day he'd first discovered Lily's ultrasound. It felt like a lifetime ago, though only weeks had passed. He found a soft bench in a corner, hidden by planters of lavender and rosemary. With a quiet sigh, he closed his eyes, letting the swirl of responsibilities and paternal anxieties settle in his mind. His solitude didn't last long. Footsteps approached, and Henry opened his eyes to see Celia from HR standing a polite distance away. "Mr. Kellington," she greeted, her tone formal yet probing. "I didn't mean to intrude, just needed some signatures on staff documentation." She held up a manila folder. Henry exhaled, forcing a cordial nod. "Celia, sure." He motioned for her to sit beside him on the bench, though he was vaguely aware that Celia rarely sought him out directly unless something specific was on her mind. She settled stiffly, handing him the folder. "It's routine stuff," she explained. "But while I have you, there's another matter I'd like to clarify." Her gaze flicked up, carefully neutral. "It concerns Lily Hansen, our cleaning staffer. I noticed some unusual scheduling accommodations. Typically, we don't alter shift patterns without an HR consult." I just wanted to confirm there's no policy violation. Henry tensed. He'd half expected some inquiry. HR was known for its vigilance, especially Celia. Maintaining calm, he kept his voice even. There's no violation. I asked for her to get a lighter workload for personal reasons. She's going through some medical concerns. Of course, and we certainly want to accommodate legitimate medical needs, Celia replied with a professional crispness. But you understand, from a policy standpoint, we'd normally receive documentation or a formal request. As of now, the HR file is incomplete. Her unspoken question hung in the air. Why the secrecy? Henry's jaw tightened. Lily's private life wasn't something to be paraded through HR channels, especially not before either of them was ready to speak publicly. Still, Celia's concern was, in theory, valid. I appreciate your thoroughness, he said, measuring each word. For now, let's say it's an internal courtesy. I'll make sure any necessary paperwork is properly filed in the future. But kindly keep this confidential. She's dealing with something sensitive. Celia dipped her head, though her eyes glinted with curiosity. Understood, Mr. Kellington. I only want to ensure everything is handled by the book. I'll wait for your directive, then. Henry signed the documents she'd brought, handing them back. Before departing, Celia offered a tight-lipped smile. Enjoy your day. As her footsteps receded, Henry frowned. Celia was efficient, but she also had a nose for gossip. He could only hope she wouldn't push any further, at least not yet. That evening, as Lily locked up her supply closet, she noticed her phone buzzing. A quick glance revealed a text from Henry. May I call you tonight? Wanted to check on how you're feeling. She flushed with a strange warmth at his attentiveness. They'd exchanged numbers for updates, though hearing from him outside work still felt surreal. She typed back, Sure, I'll be home after 7. When the call came, Lily sat on her bed in her modest studio, trying not to sound nervous. Hello? Hey, Henry's voice greeted, softer than she'd heard it at the office. Sorry if it's late. Just wanted to follow up. That appointment was a few days ago. How have you been since? Lily curled her legs beneath her, glimpsing the shadows of passing headlights on her wall. I'm all right. Tired, but better. Doctor's instructions are helping. I'm trying to rest more. Good, Henry affirmed. Then, more hesitantly, I also wanted to give you a heads up. HR is beginning to ask about your shift changes. I'm trying to keep them from prying too deep, but it might be wise if we figure out a more formal arrangement soon. Her stomach nodded. I've sensed the stares, she admitted. Some people wonder why I'm getting special treatment. I'm not ready to tell everyone yet. Henry's pause on the other end felt weighted with empathy. We don't have to make a public statement, but maybe we can talk about a new position for you, something that doesn't raise eyebrows. Perhaps a light administrative role? My only concern is that continuing as a cleaning staffer will keep drawing attention if we keep altering your duties. Lily pressed a palm to her cheek, imagining the swirl of rumors if she suddenly transferred departments under the CEO's direction. Yet it might be better than lingering in secrecy, fielding suspicious glances from co-workers. Let me think about that, she said softly. I appreciate it, but I just worry about the talk. People might assume things. A light laugh tinged with irony escaped Henry. People always assume things. If we do nothing, they suspect. If we do something, they suspect. Maybe we can't control gossip, only how we handle it. She bit her lip, realizing how bizarre it was to share such a personal conversation with a man who once felt as distant as a myth. You're right, I guess. Henry's tone softened further, a paternal note creeping in. At the end of the day, your health and the baby matter more than office gossip. If you're up for it, let's find a role that suits your current needs. Maybe data entry or assisting in a smaller department, something stable. Warmth pooled in Lily's chest, overshadowing her anxiety. For all her wariness, she couldn't deny Henry's sincerity. All right, she whispered. Let's do that. But can we coordinate so it doesn't feel abrupt? "Absolutely," he reassured. "We'll handle it carefully." They spoke a bit longer, touching on small, mundane details, her favorite foods nowadays, the latest project occupying Henry's desk, even a half-joking debate about who'd choose baby names. Lily found herself smiling more than she expected. Eventually, exhaustion tugged at her, and they said their goodnights with a strange sense of closeness that neither could fully name. The next morning, Lily arrived to find a note slipped under the door of her supply closet. She recognized Celia's precise handwriting. "Please see me in HR at your earliest convenience." Her pulse jumped. She'd half expected something like this after Henry's warning. Swallowing her nerves, she finished stocking her cart and rode the elevator down to the HR department. Celia was seated at her tidy desk, scanning her computer screen with her usual air of brisk efficiency. She looked up as Lily approached, gesturing for her to sit. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Hanson," she said, folding her hands. "I wanted to clarify your current role and any updates to your responsibilities. We haven't officially processed a change in your duties, yet your schedule has been altered multiple times. Could you shed some light on this?" Lily's heart thumped, but she recalled Henry's stance. He wanted to find her a new position soon. Should she mention it now? She decided to hold back specifics until Henry finalized the plan. "I've had some health-related circumstances," she began, voice tight. "Mr. Kellington allowed me a lighter workload for the moment." Celia's eyes narrowed slightly. "And do you have documentation from a doctor confirming limitations on your physical tasks? Typically, HR would require that before we make official changes." Lily inhaled slowly, counting to 3 in her head. "I'm in the process of getting it," she said, not exactly a lie. Dr. Patel had said she'd provide written guidance if Lily needed it. "I can submit that soon." A flicker of skepticism played across Celia's face. "All right. It's important we maintain proper protocol. Also, there have been rumors circulating about favoritism. I'm sure you understand how sensitive that can be. We want to avoid any misunderstandings." Heat rose in Lily's cheeks, but she forced herself to remain composed. "I'm just following the directions given to me," she replied carefully. "I don't want special treatment, it's just short-term accommodations." Celia paused, then nodded. "Very well. I'll expect the necessary paperwork. Until then, I suggest you be mindful about how these changes appear to others. Perception can be as important as reality in a corporate environment." Releasing a shaky breath, Lily rose. "I understand," she said. "Thank you, Celia." She left, trying not to let her knees wobble. Despite the polite veneer of the meeting, Celia's underlying message was clear. HR wanted official proof, and any further modifications would only deepen suspicion. That same day, Lily relayed the conversation to Henry in a short phone call. He listened intently. "I'll talk to Dr. Patel," he offered. "We'll get you that documentation, and I'll push forward on the new position plan. Let Celia see how serious we are. No more half measures." Though Lily agreed with relief, she also felt a pang of unease. Their shared secret was creeping ever closer to the surface. The more they tried to handle things quietly, the more prying eyes circled. Still, the promise of moving to a less physically demanding role, and hopefully a more respected position, was too good to dismiss. Lily ended the call, stepping out onto the sidewalk. The air smelled of fresh rain again, heavy clouds rolling overhead. Her phone buzzed once more, a text from Myra. "How's Mama to be doing today? Up for a chat later?" Lily typed a quick yes, hugging the phone to her chest. In the swirl of corporate tension and creeping suspicion, she thanked fate for giving her a friend's unwavering support and, oddly enough, Henry's gentle determination as well. Ducking under her umbrella to shield from the drizzle, Lily inhaled. For the baby's sake, she would keep moving forward. Soon the child would grow too big to hide, and the truth would be inescapable. Perhaps that day would come sooner than she feared. But maybe, just maybe, If Henry remained by her side, it wouldn't be so terrifying after all. The first sign of trouble that morning was a lingering set of eyes in the hallway. Lily noticed him as she passed the offices, a junior associate in marketing perched by the water dispenser, pretending to scroll his phone. But his gaze darted up each time she approached, and his whispering with another colleague suggested rumors were circulating yet again. Trying to tamp down her nerves, Lily hurried along, reminding herself she wouldn't be in her cleaning role much longer if all went according to Henry's plan. She was on her way to meet with Henry in a tucked-away conference room, one he rarely used, specifically chosen for privacy. Over the past week, they had exchanged a flurry of calls to finalize Lily's transfer to a more suitable position. Lily carried a small folder under her arm, signed instructions from Dr. Patel recommending restricted physical duties for at least the next several months. It would serve as the official justification. She disliked parading her medical needs, but there was no other way to quell HR's vigilance. Inside the conference room, Henry stood by the window, posture rigid. The morning sunlight filtered through the glass, catching flecks of dust in the air. He offered Lily a tight smile as she entered. "How are you holding up?" he asked quietly, gesturing for her to sit. She shrugged, placing the folder on the table. "Better, physically. But people are definitely talking, Henry. I feel their stares everywhere. Some are just curious. Others seem suspicious." Henry exhaled, bracing his hands on the back of a chair. "I know. That's partly why I wanted us to finalize your new role today. Once it's announced, at least we'll have an official explanation. I'm hoping it'll reduce speculation." He paused, meeting her gaze. "It won't make everything vanish overnight, but it should help." Lily nodded, heart fluttering. For all her anxiety, the thought of leaving behind the physical strain of cleaning was a relief. "What's the position you had in mind?" Henry opened a slim binder. "We have an administrative opening in the facilities department, light data entry, filing, scheduling contractors. It aligns well with your experience in daily operations. It's not glamorous, but it's not physically taxing either." He looked at her carefully. "And it wouldn't place you under me directly, so the chain of command would still be clear." She understood the unspoken message. If she reported directly to Henry, rumors would only intensify. This arrangement kept them at a professional distance while still giving Lily a safer workload. "That sounds good," she said. "I appreciate you being so thoughtful about it." He gave a small shrug, clearly trying not to overstate his concern. "We'll handle the paperwork. HR should accept Dr. Patel's note as reason enough to reassign you. The pay should be a bit higher than your cleaning role, too." Lily's eyes widened slightly. "More pay?" Henry's expression softened. "Yes. Admin roles typically start above custodial wages here, and, well..." He hesitated. "I know you've been stressed financially. The baby, rent, bills. Maybe this could ease some of that burden." She pressed her lips together. Gratitude and a lingering sense of unease warred within her. "Thank you. It'll help. I hope it doesn't look like nepotism or something." Henry winced lightly. "People may assume what they want, but it's a legitimate vacancy and you're qualified. We'll present it as such. If questions arise, we have the medical note plus a record of your time here that shows you're reliable and detail-oriented. That's all they need to know." Sitting across from him at the small table, Lily released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "All right," she whispered, gathering her resolve. "Let's do it." He produced a paper detailing the job description, sliding it toward her. Lily scanned the lines, maintaining vendor spreadsheets, scheduling maintenance checks, responding to staff queries about office repairs. It wasn't glamorous, but a cautious excitement budded in her chest. It felt like a step up, a sign that she might in time find a stable path within the company, not just as a cleaning lady but as someone recognized for more. As she signed, Henry's eyes flicked to her, a shadow of pride crinkling at their corners. "I'm glad," he said softly. For a moment, The tension between them wavered, and Lily caught a glimpse of his more vulnerable side. She wondered how it was possible that not so long ago he was just a distant, powerful figure, and now he was this gentle presence, tying her future so intimately to his own. They rose, and Henry took the folder. "I'll file this immediately. You can start Monday in the new role. Meantime, keep the doc's note on hand for HR." He paused, voice lowering. "And if you need anything else, you know where to find me." Lily managed a small, grateful nod. Then, gathering her courage, she stepped forward, placing a hand briefly on his arm. "Henry, I know this can't be easy for you either. Balancing your image, your workload, and all of this." She hesitated, words faltering. "I just want you to know I see the effort you're making. It means a lot." His features softened further, and for an instant he looked as though he might say something deeply personal. Then a rap on the conference room door shattered the moment. They both straightened, and Lily hurried to gather her belongings. Henry called out, "Come in!" and an apologetic marketing manager poked his head in, stammering about a meeting time. With a final, discreet smile, Lily slipped past, leaving Henry to his corporate obligations. By the end of the day, the official transfer was processed and Lily visited the HR department. She handed Celia the medical note from Dr. Patel, along with her new job assignment. Celia's expression was carefully neutral as she skimmed the paperwork. "I see," she murmured. "So you'll be moving to admin under facilities on Monday?" Lily nodded, trying to read Celia's reaction. "Yes, that's correct. It's less physically demanding, which helps my situation." Celia pursed her lips but nodded in acceptance. "Everything looks in order. I'll finalize it in the system." Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "I hope your health improves, Ms. Hanson. If you need anything else from HR, our door is always open." Lily wasn't sure if the concern was genuine or if Celia's curiosity still burned beneath that measured tone. Nonetheless, she offered a small thanks and left, shoulders relaxing once she stepped out. For now, that hurdle seemed cleared. That weekend brought a welcome chance for Lily to decompress. Myra visited again, bringing homemade pastries and unfiltered moral support. They sprawled on Lily's threadbare couch, flipping through a baby name book Myra had found in a second-hand bookstore. Though Lily had once cringed at the thought of discussing baby names so soon, the flutter of excitement in her belly felt undeniable. Life was moving forward, unstoppable and full of possibility. "I still can't believe you're moving to an admin role," Myra gushed, munching a pastry. "Look at you, climbing the ladder." Lily laughed, half in disbelief. "It's more like transferring sideways. But yeah, it's definitely a step up. Less scrubbing floors at least." Myra's eyes sparkled. "And Henry pulled strings, right? You can call it what you want, but the CEO personally adjusting your career path? That's big." Lily blushed. "He said it's a legitimate vacancy. He just facilitated it because of my condition." "Right, your condition," Myra teased, gently poking at Lily's abdomen. "Soon enough, that bump won't let you hide anything. Are you prepared for the office to know you're pregnant?" The question made Lily's chest tighten momentarily. She exhaled. "I suppose I'll have to be. Henry's standing by me. He insists that no one can penalize me for it. Still, I dread the gossip that might swirl once people connect the dots." Myra looped an arm around Lily's shoulders. "They can gossip all they want. You have a right to your life, and if Henry's half the man you describe, he'll shield you from the worst of it." Lily nodded, feeling a flicker of comfort. "Thanks," she whispered, grateful that Myra never made her feel foolish for trusting in Henry's goodwill. It was only one piece of a complicated puzzle, but it was a start. Monday morning dawned, crisp and bright, with no sign of the previous week's rain. Lily arrived at Kellington Enterprises early, butterflies swirling in her stomach. She wore her nicest blouse and a pair of slacks she'd bought second-hand, comfortable yet presentable enough for an admin role. The cleaning uniform was now a piece of her past. Navigating the hallways felt disorienting, like stepping onto a stage. A few people did double takes seeing her out of the usual gray smock, but Lily kept her head high. One of the facilities managers, a middle-aged woman named Arlene, greeted her kindly. "So you're Lily? I hear you're joining our team. Welcome." Arlene showed her to a modest desk near the back of the facilities section, tucked away from the main hustle of the executive floors, but still far more visible than the behind-the-scenes corners she once occupied. Lily settled into her new workspace, a plain metal desk, a company-issued computer, a battered file cabinet to her left. Arlene quickly walked her through the basics. "We track maintenance requests here, coordinate with external service vendors, handle staff questions about lighting, AC, plumbing, anything building-related. We rely on spreadsheets, phone logs, and an internal messaging system. You'll do fine." Though Lily felt a wave of nerves, worried about messing up or revealing how inexperienced she was at office tasks, she also felt a spark of determination. This was a chance to learn new skills and prove her worth beyond sweeping floors. She dove in with quiet focus, scanning old records, familiarizing herself with vendor codes, and taking notes as Arlene explained procedures. By midday, Lily had answered a handful of basic queries that popped up via email, employees complaining about flickering lights on certain floors or requesting a change in office layout. She methodically logged each request, forwarding them to the correct teams. It felt surprisingly good to type on a keyboard instead of pushing a mop. During her lunch break, she debated whether to seek out Henry to show gratitude, but she remembered his caution about not drawing attention. So she opted to send a succinct text. "Everything's going well so far. Thanks again for helping me get settled." She slipped her phone back into her pocket, hoping he'd understand how much she appreciated this new beginning. Arlene invited Lily to eat in the staff lounge on their floor, where a handful of employees congregated around small tables. While Lily sipped her water and nibbled a sandwich, a couple of them asked friendly questions. "How long have you been at the company? Were you transferred from another department?" She answered truthfully. She'd been cleaning staff for months but needed a lighter role due to health concerns. Most nodded sympathetically. A few eyebrows rose, but no one pried about the specifics of her health issues. To Lily's relief, she sensed no overt hostility. Yet she knew that deeper rumors might be brewing in other pockets of the company. She caught sight of Celia passing by in the corridor, darting a keen glance into the lounge. Lily pretended not to notice. The best she could do was remain professional and do the job well, hoping to ease any gossip by sheer competence. That afternoon, as Lily returned from delivering some updated facility reports, she nearly bumped into Henry in the hallway near the elevator. He was flanked by two senior managers deep in conversation. Their eyes briefly met. He offered the slightest smile, so fleeting only she would catch it, and a barely perceptible nod. Lily dipped her head in acknowledgement, her pulse skipping. They passed one another without a word, each continuing in separate directions. The moment felt symbolic. Even though they were connected by a secret that grew more visible with each passing day, they had to function in public as two individuals on very different rungs of the corporate ladder. Lily was proud that she could walk these halls now wearing business casual instead of a custodial uniform. But the baby bump nestled in her abdomen reminded her that this was only the beginning of the changes to come. As evening approached and Lily logged out of her computer for the day, she glanced at her reflection in the darkened screen. She looked almost like any other office employee, wearing conservative clothes, carrying a neat stack of papers, no longer invisible, yet not fully revealed. A swirl of emotions brewed inside her, pride at adapting to a new role, anxiety about looming gossip, and a tender warmth when she recalled Henry's unwavering expression at the ultrasound. She whispered under her breath, "We'll be all right," as if speaking to the baby. Then, gathering her purse, she stepped away from the desk. Tomorrow promised fresh challenges, but for once, Lily felt anchored by a sense of calm purpose. All around her, the corporate buzz continued, keyboards clacking, phones ringing, but inside, she was no longer just a shadow. She was Lily Hansen, soon-to-be mother, forging a path in a place she'd never dreamed she belonged. And that knowledge, precarious yet profound, made her footsteps lighter as she left for the day. Morning light streamed through the tall windows of Kellington Enterprises Facilities Department as Lily settled into her desk. She powered on her computer, sipping peppermint tea to help with the wave of nausea that still visited her each morning. It had been a week since her transition to the new role, and though she still felt a pinch of awkwardness among her office colleagues, she also sensed a growing confidence. Each day, she grew more adept at juggling spreadsheets, vendor contacts, and staff requests. Soft footsteps approached. Arlene, the facilities manager, arrived holding a few forms. She beamed at Lily. "Morning, my dear. We need a quick inventory update on the contractor files. Some are out of date. Can you handle that today?" Lily nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Sure thing. I'll cross-check them and make a summary for you." "Wonderful. Oh, and don't forget to take your breaks. Doctor's orders." Arlene winked knowingly, patting Lily's arm before heading off. The gentle reminder made Lily's heart warm. She wasn't used to such open concern from a supervisor. As Lily turned back to her computer, she felt a faint flutter in her abdomen. The sensation was subtle, like a tiny quiver under her skin. She paused, hand drifting to her stomach. Could it be the baby moving? She'd read that around this stage some expectant mothers sense the first flutters. Excitement and awe flooded her, and for a moment she simply breathed, imagining the little life stirring within. Quietly, she thought, "Soon I'll have to tell more people. I won't be able to hide this much longer." A ping interrupted her reverie. The company's internal messenger displayed a note from Henry. "Hope the new position is suiting you. I have a quick question about building permits. Mind stopping by my office around 2 p.m.? Lily stared at the message, curiosity sparking. The mention of building permits might be an excuse. Perhaps he just wanted to check on her discreetly. Still, she typed a professional reply. "Sure, I'll be there. See you then." The day passed in a blur of tasks. She updated contractor files, placed calls about scheduled repairs, and even handled a minor plumbing complaint from the 21st floor. While her body still tired easily, the mental satisfaction of office work felt encouraging. Around lunchtime, a mild cramp tugged at her midsection, prompting her to step out into the corridor for fresh air and a bit of stretching. She wandered near the windows where a sweeping view of the city sprawled below. The reflection of her own form caught her eye, her torso slightly thicker, her posture more protective of her belly. She exhaled slowly. Any day now, her co-workers would notice the changes. The thought ignited equal parts anxiety and excitement. A sudden voice broke into her thoughts. "Enjoying the view?" Turning, Lily saw Celia from HR pausing a few feet away. Her stance was polite, but had that same undertone of watchfulness Lily had sensed before. Lily mustered a pleasant nod. "Just taking a quick break. I'm still getting used to sitting behind a desk all day." Celia clasped her hands, glancing out the window as if trying to appear casual. "I heard you've been doing well in facilities. Arlene speaks highly of you, says your organizational skills are a real asset." Heat of modest pride tinted Lily's cheeks. "That's kind of her to say. I'm just trying my best." A beat passed, and Lily sensed Celia's eyes flickering toward her abdomen almost imperceptibly. Celia cleared her throat. "We haven't had a chance to finalize your status change paperwork. I'll need you to confirm some personal details, emergency contact updates, that sort of thing." Lily lifted her chin. "Sure, I can stop by HR later today." Celia offered a tight-lipped smile. "That would be great. We want everything in order." With that, she excused herself and walked off, leaving Lily's nerves prickling. She suspected Celia's curiosity was far from satisfied. At precisely 2 o'clock, Lily took the elevator up to Henry's office floor, clutching a small folder of permit-related documents that Arlene had asked her to deliver. She emerged into the sleek corridor lined with framed corporate achievements. Her heart fluttered, less from nerves this time, more from anticipation at seeing Henry. Mariah greeted her with a friendly nod, quietly guiding her into Henry's office. He was finishing a phone call but ended it as soon as Lily entered, wearing a faintly tired smile. "Thanks for coming. Have a seat." She set the folder on his desk. "Arlene said you needed some details about these building permits?" Henry leaned forward, skimming the papers. "Yes, there's a potential expansion we're considering in the West Wing. I just needed to confirm timelines." He paused, glancing up. "But if I'm honest, that's just one reason I called you. The other is to check on you." Lily's face softened. "I'm all right," she said gently, though she noticed the lines of stress on his brow. "You seem tired." He released a breath. "Big negotiations lately, and I've got the charity gala looming, lots of planning. It's draining, but it's nothing compared to what you're going through." His gaze flicked briefly to her stomach. "How's everything with the baby?" A tender warmth spread through Lily. "I think I felt a little flutter today," she admitted, her voice quietly awed. "It's early, but Dr. Patel mentioned it could happen around now. I'm really excited." His eyes lit up, an unguarded moment of wonder. A flutter? A slight grin found its way to his lips. "That's incredible. Wish I could feel that." Emotion tightened Lily's throat. She hadn't expected such a heartfelt response. "Maybe soon," she said softly. "Dr. Patel said in another month or two I might feel stronger kicks." Henry nodded, leaning back in his chair. I can't believe how fast everything's changing." For a moment neither spoke, letting the hum of the office fill the silence. Clearing his throat, Henry spoke again. "So, about the formalities. Do you want me to make any announcements? Or still keep things quiet about the pregnancy?" Nervousness prickled up Lily's spine. "Celia's still watching me closely. But honestly, I'll be showing soon. Maybe it's time to consider telling the people who matter, like your executive board. Or at least have a plan, so they don't blindside you if the gossip spreads." Henry rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "You're right. I can't hide this forever, and I don't want you to feel like some secret I'm ashamed of. It's quite the opposite." He held her gaze, sincerity shining in his eyes. "We just need a careful approach. The company is preparing for that charity gala, and I prefer no big public stir until we're both ready. But among key staff, maybe I can quietly confirm if they ask." Her heart squeezed at his words. "I don't want you to feel like some secret I'm ashamed of." It was more than she ever expected him to voice aloud. She nodded, trying to hold back the flood of gratitude. "Thank you for saying that," she whispered. "I just don't want to jeopardize your reputation." Henry's lips curved with faint irony. "I've spent years caring too much about reputation. This is more important." He tapped the building permit file as if to break the tension. "I'll get back to you on these details. Thank you for bringing them." She took it as a gentle dismissal, rising from the chair. Before she could leave, Henry's voice stopped her. "Lily." She turned, meeting his gaze. "If you need anything at all, please let me know. I want to be there. Even if it's not a grand gesture, even if it's just bringing you lunch on a tough day." He hesitated, then spoke more softly. "I mean that." A warm smile lifted Lily's features. "I know you do," she said, voice earnest. "And I will. I promise." She left, heart brimming with cautious hope. For all the corporate formality that governed their world, Henry's concern and sincerity felt genuine. With each conversation, they inched closer to forging a true partnership, unorthodox as it was. That evening, Lily followed through on Celia's request, stopping by HR to finalize her personal data updates. She sat at Celia's desk, filling out digital forms on a tablet. Partway through, Celia glanced at Lily pointedly. "So you've settled into facilities well, I see," she commented. "Yeah," Lily responded, keeping her tone light. "It's a good fit." Celia pressed her lips together. "Might I ask how long you foresee staying in that role? If you're facing prolonged health considerations, we might plan accordingly." The question, so innocently worded, triggered Lily's protective instinct. "I'm taking it one day at a time," she said carefully. "The doctor says I should be fine to work up until later in the pregnancy, as long as it's not physically intensive." There was a telling flicker in Celia's eyes at the word pregnancy. She leaned in slightly, voice dropping. "So, it is a pregnancy then?" Lily's pulse jolted. She realized she'd let the words slip without thinking, but it was hardly a secret she could deny forever. "Yes," she answered quietly, drawing a shaky breath, "but I'd appreciate keeping that private for now." Her eyes held a plea. For a moment, Celia's expression softened with something akin to sympathy. "I see," she murmured, as though connecting many dots. "Well, congratulations, I suppose. And don't worry, I'll handle your personal file discreetly." Yet Lily detected an undercurrent of mixed emotions, curiosity, maybe even concern. HR thrived on clarity, and Lily's situation was full of unknowns. "Thank you," Lily said, her voice subdued. "I'm grateful." Celia offered a subdued nod, returning to the official documentation. "Of course. Now, just sign here for the updated emergency contacts." They finished the process in a hush of mutual understanding. Lily left the HR office both relieved and unsettled. The secret was creeping into the open like water seeping through cracks. By midweek, Lily found a bouquet of cheerful daisies on her desk. No note, but she knew who they were from. Henry had mentioned, half-jokingly, that her new workspace needed a little brightening. She blushed as Arlene passed by, raising an eyebrow at the flowers. Lily pretended to laugh it off as a kind gesture from someone she wouldn't identify. Still, the daisies made her smile all day. Thursday brought another appointment with Dr. Patel, just a routine check-in, but Henry insisted on going. They rendezvoused at the clinic in the early afternoon, Lily arriving via taxi and Henry slipping away from the office between back-to-back meetings. Inside the exam room, the nurse took Lily's vitals while Henry waited quietly, his phone buzzing with missed calls he ignored. When Dr. Patel began the ultrasound, Lily squeezed Henry's hand. This time, the baby's movements were more pronounced on the monitor, drawing a subtle gasp from Henry. He caught his breath, eyes shining at the little kicks. Dr. Patel smiled, adjusting the wand. "Looks like an active one. Everything appears healthy." Relief and joy mingled on Lily's face. Henry pressed his free hand over his mouth, emotions threatening to overwhelm him. In that tiny, flickering image, he saw a future that felt both daunting and irresistibly precious. He'd forged multi-million-dollar deals without so much as a twitch of nerves, yet watching a tiny leg kick on the ultrasound put a tremor in his hands. Afterward, as they exited the clinic, Lily noticed the tension melting from Henry's shoulders. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. He let out a breathy laugh. "I'm fine. This is just, well, it's the most real thing I've ever experienced." He glanced at her with a new vulnerability. "I appreciate you letting me be here, letting me see the baby growing." Her heart thudded at his raw sincerity. "I want you here," she admitted, stepping under the clinic's awning. The sky overhead threatened rain again. "It helps having you involved." He hesitated, then reached for her hand, giving it a soft squeeze before letting go. "We've got this," he murmured, "one step at a time." As if on cue, thunder rumbled in the distance, and they exchanged small smiles. It felt like a sign. Life's storms loomed, but at least they weren't facing them alone. That night, Lily called Myra to share her excitement. "The baby was kicking during the ultrasound," she nearly squealed. Henry was speechless. Myra chuckled on the other end. Sounds like a proud papa moment. Keep letting him in, Lily. You deserve that support. Lily lay in bed, cradling the phone, eyes on the daisies Henry had sent, now in a vase on her nightstand. I'm trying. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if we could be a real family. Her voice dropped, unsure. But then I remember how different our worlds are, and how complicated this all is. Her friend's voice softened. Complications aside, you're building something together, like it or not. Don't be afraid to hope for more than just co-parenting. Henry sounds genuinely caring, despite the corporate armor. Lily closed her eyes, her free hand resting on her belly. Yeah, maybe, she whispered. A tangle of caution and hope twisted in her heart. She thought of Henry's bright smile at the clinic, his hand warm in hers, and that genuine promise. We've got this. For all the uncertainties swirling around them, HR scrutiny, office gossip, the impending reality of parenthood, she felt a quiet conviction blooming. Together they might weather the storm and unearth something beautiful on the other side, and that possibility, fragile as it was, became the lullaby soothing Lily into a peaceful sleep. The days marched steadily toward the highly anticipated charity gala at Kellington Enterprises, an event long known for black-tie splendor, where high-profile clients, investors, and city officials converged to toast the company's philanthropic endeavors. For Lily, now firmly in her new facility's administrative role, the buzz of last-minute planning echoed through the corridors. Caterers confirming deliveries, decorations arriving in crates, staff double-checking the lighting scheme. Everyone in the building seemed abuzz with that unique mix of excitement and exhaustion that precedes a major event. Behind her desk, Lily focused on a spreadsheet of upcoming maintenance requests. She tried to blot out the swirling noise of conversations about the gala, yet every so often she felt a tiny flutter in her belly, a gentle reminder that soon enough her own personal news would be impossible to hide. A small smile tugged at her lips as she recalled Henry's awed reaction at their most recent prenatal appointment. He had actually laughed, a soft, breathless laugh, when the baby on the ultrasound gave a well-timed kick. It was a memory she carried like a secret talisman. That afternoon, Arlene approached with a polite cough. "Lily, there's a slight problem on the upper floors. Some of the overhead lighting is flickering. Could you coordinate the electrician for tomorrow?" "Of course," Lily replied, swiftly marking it down. She enjoyed the sense of competence in her new role. Even small tasks felt like victories, proof that she belonged beyond a broom and mop. Arlene lingered, tapping her pen. "You doing all right?" she asked in a lower voice. "You look a bit paler than usual." Lily blinked, surprised by the concern. "Oh, I'm fine. Maybe just tired." Her lunch hadn't settled well, and the headache she'd tried to ignore all morning was creeping along her temples. She hated how easily exhaustion seemed to ambush her these days. "Take it easy," Arlene advised. "If you need a break, just say so." Then she strode off, leaving Lily grateful for the manager's kindness. Not everyone in the office was so understanding. She still caught the occasional suspicious glance from certain co-workers, but at least no one had confronted her outright about her pregnancy. Yet. Late in the day, her phone buzzed with a text from Henry. "Gala is tomorrow night. You're of course invited if you wish to attend. Might be good to show your new department presence, plus we're revealing a big philanthropic initiative. No pressure, though." Lily read the message twice, her pulse jumping. She'd never attended a formal corporate gala in her life. She wasn't even sure she had anything to wear, and the idea of stepping into a room full of wealthy executives made her stomach clench. Still, an inexplicable spark flared. This was Henry's world, and in some sense the child inside her was tied to that world too. Maybe the time for hiding was nearing its end. She replied with trembling fingers, "I'll think about it. Not sure I have the right attire." Seconds later, Henry sent, "If you decide to come, I'll handle everything. Let me know." Her heart fluttered. The offer felt grand, but she was torn between wanting to remain safely invisible and longing to share in the night that meant so much to him. With a sigh, she pocketed her phone. She'd decide later, perhaps after talking with Myra. As predicted, Myra's immediate reaction when Lily called that evening was pure excitement. "You have to go, Lily. How often do you get to step out in a gorgeous dress, rub elbows with top executives, and be part of Henry's big philanthropic moment?" Lily paced her small living room. "I just don't want to look out of place. People might notice my figure, and I'm not exactly brimming with fancy gowns." Myra gave a dramatic scoff. "So let Henry help. You said he offered. This is your chance to stand there as an equal, not a rumor or a secret, but a real person with her own worth." Swallowing hard, Lily pictured Henry's warm smile, the daisies that still bloomed on her desk. Maybe Myra was right. She was no longer the timid cleaning lady. She had a name and a position in the company, and she carried Henry's child, though that last fact was not yet public knowledge. Perhaps it was time she stopped feeling like she had to cower in the shadows. "All right," she finally said, a shaky resolve in her voice. "I'll go. Wish me luck." "Always," Myra said. "You're going to be dazzling, Mama." The next day, Lily found herself in a whirlwind of last-minute tasks. Between responding to urgent maintenance emails and checking in with Arlene about the flickering lights, she hardly had time to catch her breath, let alone worry about the gala. But near lunchtime, Mariah, Henry's assistant, quietly pulled Lily aside to an empty conference room. "I hear you're attending the event," Mariah said, a gentle gleam in her eyes. "Mr. Kellington asked me to see if there's anything you need, like a dress or a stylist. The company often has resources for official gatherings. He'd be happy to arrange it." Lily's cheeks warmed. "Oh, are you sure that's appropriate?" Mariah's smile held genuine kindness. "It's not unusual for the company to outfit employees who represent Kellington Enterprises at major events. We do it for certain spokespeople, department heads, or philanthropic reps. Henry said you're part of our philanthropic administrative circle now, with facilities bridging a portion of the new charity expansion." She winked. "It's all above board, if that helps." Lily exhaled in relief. "It does, actually." "Okay, sure. I'd appreciate it." Mariah nodded, handing Lily a business card. "Meet me at this boutique after work. Everything's arranged." Nerves danced in Lily's stomach, but she managed a grateful nod. "Thank you." True to Mariah's word, the boutique experience was quick and discreet. A friendly seamstress swiftly took Lily's measurements, eyeing her baby bump with warm understanding. By the end of the fitting, Lily stood in front of a mirror, wearing a floor-length midnight blue gown that draped over her body with soft elegance. The seamstress had allowed extra room around the midsection, so Lily's subtle bump wasn't constricted. She felt radiant, if a bit self-conscious. Mariah clapped her hands softly. "That color suits you perfectly. Henry will be speechless." Lily's heart skipped. "It's beautiful," she admitted, smoothing a hand over the fabric. Part of her still felt guilty accepting such luxury. But she had to admit, she'd never owned anything like this, and the soft glow in the mirror gave her a confidence she barely recognized. Gala night arrived in a flurry of last-minute preparations. Lily left work early, freshening up at her apartment and carefully sliding into the gown. Myra had come over to assist, styling Lily's hair in a simple, elegant twist that showcased her gentle features. Once Lily slipped on matching heels, low ones for comfort, she stared at her reflection, hardly believing the poised figure looking back. The slight curve of her belly was visible if you looked closely, but it didn't overshadow her entire presence. She was still Lily, yet somehow transformed. A sleek car arranged by Henry pulled up outside her building. The driver greeted her politely, helping her in. Lily clutched a small purse with trembling fingers, feeling a mix of exhilaration and dread. What if the moment she stepped into the gala, everyone's eyes landed on her? She drew a long breath, whispering to her baby, "We've got this," borrowing Henry's comforting mantra. Downtown, the venue bustled with limousines and luxurious sedans, dropping off guests in a swirl of glittering attire. Lily followed the line inside, each step magnified by the hush of an ornate lobby. Large golden letters welcomed the invitees to the Kellington Enterprises Charity Gala. Soft music played from a string quartet, and servers in crisp uniforms offered flutes of sparkling juice or champagne. Lily's heart hammered as she navigated the crowd. Over by a tall floral arrangement, she spotted Henry, poised in a sharp black tuxedo. He scanned the entrance with a faint crease between his brows, and when his eyes landed on Lily, that crease melted into a quiet, radiant smile. She approached him, feeling every inch the fish out of water. But Henry's warm gaze soothed her nerves. "You look stunning," he murmured, offering his arm. Her cheeks heated at the sincerity in his voice. "You clean up well yourself," she teased softly, slipping her hand into the crook of his elbow. They stood there for a moment, taking in each other's presence in the swirl of swirling gowns and murmured conversations. Executive after executive approached Henry to greet him, some eyeing Lily with polite curiosity. He introduced her simply as Lily Hanson from our Facilities and Philanthropy Administrative Team, enough to quell immediate questions. A few recognized her from the office but said nothing beyond typical pleasantries. Others praised her dress or nodded cordially. It wasn't as terrifying as she'd imagined, perhaps because Henry remained so steadfast at her side. The gala program included a short speech from Henry about the company's new philanthropic venture, renovating community centers in underserved neighborhoods. Lily found a seat near the front, listening as he spoke with authority and passion. She noticed how the crowd hung on his every word, and she felt a flicker of pride. He really was a strong leader, not just a cunning businessman. When Henry finished, the applause was thunderous. He stepped off the podium, weaving through congratulatory handshakes to return to Lily. She started to say something, perhaps a compliment on his speech, but was interrupted by Celia from HR, who hovered with a gentle cough. "Mr. Kellington, Ms. Hanson," Celia acknowledged, her gaze flicking from Henry's tux to Lily's gown. "This is quite the event." "Indeed it is," Henry replied, tone cool but polite. Celia offered a thin smile. "Congratulations on the philanthropic expansion. I'm sure it will do wonders for the company's community image." Then her eyes flicked momentarily to Lily's midsection. "Ms. Hanson, I trust you're comfortable tonight?" Lily tensed, forced a calm nod. "Yes, of course. Thank you for asking." An awkward beat passed, tension crackling in the subtext. Before Celia could speak further, Henry angled himself slightly to protect Lily from prying eyes. "We appreciate your thorough work, Celia," he said. "But tonight, let's enjoy the cause we're supporting. If you'll excuse us." He guided Lily gently away, leaving Celia behind with an unreadable expression. They found a quieter corner near a grand piano. Lily exhaled a shaky breath. That felt tense. Henry's jaw tightened. "She's still suspicious, I'm sure, but we'll deal with it when the time comes. I won't let her make you uncomfortable." He placed a protective hand over hers. "You okay?" "I am," Lily whispered, chest fluttering with gratitude. Despite the swirling crowd and the curious stares, she felt safe with him. "Thank you." The gala resumed with dinner service, swirling music and lively chatter. Lily and Henry sat at a table with a few department heads, exchanging polite banter. She carefully sipped a non-alcoholic cocktail, ignoring her racing heart whenever she felt the baby stir. At one point, an older board member politely asked Lily about her background, how she joined Kellington Enterprises, how she found the transition. Lily answered with composure, skillfully avoiding the deeper truth that months ago she'd been pushing a mop across these same floors. Henry offered the occasional supportive smile, letting her steer the conversation. When dessert was served, small delicate pastries, Henry leaned closer to Lily. "Want to step outside for air?" She nodded, grateful. They slipped onto a balcony where the city's lights shimmered. A soft breeze caressed Lily's cheeks, and she inhaled the night air. "Thank you for inviting me," she said softly, resting her hand on the balcony rail. "I was terrified, but it's actually been kind of nice." Henry's expression brimmed with warmth. "You belong here," he replied simply, voice tinged with pride. His gaze drifted to her abdomen. "We both do. All three of us, actually." A gentle laugh escaped her, tears burning the back of her eyes. The magnitude of it all, her journey from invisible cleaner to proud member of the Kellington workforce, from solitary fear to shared hope, crashed over her like a tender wave. Henry hesitated, then laid his hand over Lily's, which lightly touched her stomach. She let him, heartbeat pounding. In the hush of the balcony, the city's hum a distant backdrop, they shared a moment so intimate it eclipsed the gala's grandeur. He whispered, "I promise, Lily, we'll navigate whatever comes next, together." She closed her eyes, letting a tear slip free. "Yes," she breathed, leaning toward him, "together." They rejoined the gala for the final speeches and charitable acknowledgments, but Lily carried the balcony moment in her heart. As the night wound down and guests began to depart, Lily stepped aside to call for a ride, feeling the day's fatigue weigh on her. Henry approached, offering to have the company driver take her home. She accepted gratefully. Before she left, he squeezed her hand one last time. "Rest well, Lily. You did wonderfully tonight." She gave a shy smile, returning the pressure. "So did you, Henry." Then she slipped into the car, daisies from the table's centerpiece in her hands, a quiet keepsake of a night that sealed an unspoken bond. While the vehicle pulled away, Lily stared out at the shimmering skyline, tears of relief and joy gliding down her cheeks. She and Henry had stepped out of the shadows, forging the first steps of a future that no longer felt so daunting. No, they didn't have all the answers. Tomorrow, Celia might confront them. Rumors might swirl further. The baby's arrival would upend life in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But as Lily cradled the daisies against her stomach, she whispered softly, "We'll be ready." Because if this night had shown her anything, it was that in each other, she and Henry had finally found the promise of a family. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.